If you're looking to level up your UX, content, or product design practice to confidently and joyfully tackle complexity, ask the million-dollar questions, and design digital systems that actually work, you are so in the right place. Welcome to the UX Level Up podcast. I'm Sophia Prater, and for over a decade, I've been teaching professionals how to make the most valuable and often invisible parts of UX gloriously visible. We will untangle the structure beneath the surface before jumping into screens, saving time, money, and headaches, and having so much fun doing it. Together, let's UX collaboration, break down silos, and build shared understanding that sets everyone up for success. Let's become the systems thinkers that our teams, and quite honestly, the world, are so desperately craving. Let's level up our practice and redefine what it means to be a UX designer. Let's jump into it. Welcome back to the UX Level Up podcast. Jake Zukowski back again to talk more about prioritization, CTA prioritization.
You can't keep me away from this. You cannot keep me away from this podcast long enough.
We're going to keep going. We're going to go through prioritization. This time it's all about CTA Prio. So you may have gotten Jake's intro in the last episode where we talked about relationship prioritization and contra relationships and revenue objects and driving
abstract revenue objects and all of that.
Revenue objects. Such a nerd fest. We had a great time. But Jake, for those that are just dropping in right now, can you introduce yourself real quick? Let us know kind of your journey to OAUX and what you're doing here talking about all this prioritization stuff.
Yeah, so I'm Jake. I am the founder and designer and CEO, in that order, of Cosmic Plumbing, which is a professional astrology software company, but we're also going to make other occult tools. So I'm very excited to take on tarot next. So if you're a big tarot fan, let me know. I am all about professional tarot and professional astrology. Before that, I was working for HelloFresh as the vice president of global design and research. And the reason I am part of the prioritization round is because I was one of the people that was blessed enough to grab the brass ring and be at the highest ranks of design leadership. And I learned a lot in that role that I think can help you all to progress your journey as a designer and as a business person through vice president, chief design officer. I hope that you all just become CEOs and founders one day like me.
And I mean, yeah, you're kind of bringing that like CEO energy into CEO VP energy into the ORCA process and really helping us understand the business more, helping us work with the business, be partners as designers, be partners with the business. So we're not like at odds with the business and don't feel like we're fighting our stakeholders or wrangling our stakeholders. We are leveraging our stakeholders. We're working with our stakeholders. We're working with the business and we're just stronger together. One big happy family, right?
And this to me is where CTA prioritization becomes so important. It's such a crux of being a great partner to your stakeholders, because this is the moment where you will get a bunch of CTAs thrown at you from the growth team, from the product team, from the marketing team, and they've got a bag of tricks that they want to do. And this is the moment where you could either be tactical and just do what they do and either use your hands or someone else's hands to render their vision, or to start bringing in OOUX philosophy and ORCA methodology in order to facilitate the right conversation with the business that not only helps users, but also helps the business. So really, this round is all about recognizing these tactical situations before they come up, before the growth team comes to you with a solution that they've read in a blog, that they've heard on a podcast. And you are now you are not the tactical thinker, you are the strategic thinker. And you are now the calm voice in the room driving great results for the business and great results for users.
Oh my gosh. Sounds glorious. I mean, I just in our last episode, when we were talking about relationship prioritization, I just learned so much from you. And I was just thinking back, like, to have this knowledge 5 years ago when I was still doing client work would have just been so amazing, because I really, I was very much coming in as an individual contributor, as like, I'm here to kind of boots on the ground, help you with your information architecture, help you think in systems, create screens at the end of the day. But when it came to prioritization, I mean, I just had very rudimentary tools. So that's why I love that you're coming in here to own the prioritization round. You are going to be working on, we've already started some really awesome filming. The cameras are rolling to start creating the new masterclass that's going to be delivered during
Yeah.
cohort 11 with not only you owning prioritization, Ali Ofisher is going to be owning the representation round. Marisa Montaldi is going to be owning the requirements round. I'm still owning discovery, y'all. And I am going to be kind of woven through this entire masterclass, but like you're just going to bring so much of that gravitas to prioritization to really help us designers stand next to the business and really
I
help.
started showing some of the videos to my niece that we had recorded in the Blue Ridge Mountains
Yeah.
of Georgia, and she said I have perfect YouTube voice. She's like, "Oh, there's YouTube voice." So I said, "Perfect,
Yes.
great, gravitas achieved."
Yes, definitely. We just want to listen to you and learn from all of your experience. I want to talk a little bit more about your experience because before you were
Yeah.
internal and in leadership at HelloFresh, I mean, you worked at a lot of big name exciting agencies where you were doing client work, right?
Yes, that's
Was
correct.
it Frog? Were you at Frog? And then
Yep. So I was at Frog, I was at Fjord. Fjord turned into Accenture Song. These were all of the consultancies that I was at. And then I was at a smaller kind of marketing consultancy.
yeah.
But also I was working in augmented reality for Magic Leap. And I worked at Microsoft and Expedia. So I have a lot of client side and consultant side experience here
Yeah.
to bring.
Lots of, I think you called it intense corporate scenarios or something like that.
Yeah, what did I say? Hypothesis, yeah, intense product-driven cultures.
Yeah.
Hypothesis-driven experimentation-led cultures.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're experimenting, that is like how you're figuring out how to prioritize things. You're like, where does this thing go in our roadmap? Like, how important is this? Is this experiment working? Is it not? Is it not working? Is it kind of working? Do we need to tweak it? So when it comes to CTA prioritization, tell me your feelings on CTA prioritization. Why, actually,
Sure.
before I open up with like a ridiculously broad question, as we're, and for anybody watching this on YouTube, if you're watching the video version of this, Jake's
Yes,
really
I'm
close to
messing
the
with my
screen
power cord.
right now.
I'm messing with my power cord right now, so don't mind me.
But
Okay, it's not working. That's fine.
you might also note that like I'm wearing the same shirt right now. Like we might just be filming these episodes all back to back. All right. That's
Yeah.
cool though. So if you are watching, I don't know why I got onto that. What were we going to talk about?
I don't know.
I remember why. Because we're in a tool called Descript, which is awesome. And we want to make sure to create new projects as we like are filming this. We want this to be 3 project object instances in Descript. So to do that, we have to leave the room and come back into the room to get it to do that, which is funny. There maybe should be like create new project CTA in Descript rooms. But what was the CTA that was given to you as you were coming into the room as a guest in Descript?
So imagine that I got invited to do a podcast. I know a little bit of Descript, maybe. I've heard of the company, but for the most part, I was just invited to be part of a conversation. And when I joined the room, before I was admitted into the room, one of the CTAs that was offered to me was called Sign Up for Descript. Now, great, because you are saying there's some amount of like, you are here, we have your attention, maybe it's time for you to take a look at what we are all about. But like, imagine, I don't know what Descript is. I'm about to go into a podcast. Like my mind is somewhere else right now. And the idea that that was the CTA that was offered to me seems like the right CTA at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And this is really what CTA prioritization is all about. Where is somebody's headspace in the journey? And how do you make sure that you match their headspace? Oh yeah, and then Sophia's holding up the screen right now.
So this is literally like when you're trying to decide like which camera you're going to use, your speaker, like it's like you're about to enter the room.
Yeah, I literally
Obviously,
have like notes up here.
Yeah.
I've got my hype song in my head, and all of a sudden it's like, sign up for Descript. No.
And that's
what
the
you want
main
me...
CTA too.
Yeah.
Oh, it says waiting for your host.
It's the highlighted one.
So I guess was there like a knock CTA before this? Like to like be like,
I mean, there was a join the room.
Join the
but then
room,
there
okay.
was like basically leave the room at this point. You're like, I don't want to leave the room.
Yeah.
Why would I click this to leave the room?
Yeah.
So it was very odd placement. But like the intention is good, right? Like you have someone here, you have their attention. why not spend a little bit of time while I'm waiting in the room, give me 2 lines about what Descript is all about, and give me a box to put my email address in, and like, why don't you email me later more about this, and I can learn more about you. And that's really what CTA prioritization is all about. How do you make sure that you capture someone's attention in the right way to progress a conversation? And there's lots and lots of examples of doing it the wrong way, where Sophia was talking about doing a flight for Delta, and she needs to make sure that all of the details are correct when she signs up for this flight. And all of a sudden, in the middle of it, it's like, why don't you tell us about your experience? Like, wrong time. Wrong time for this. You need to stop. Yeah.
And so,
And so if you think about this, yeah, what is the right time? What is the wrong time? Sorry, go ahead.
well, I'm just thinking like there's CTAs on objects, right? So for those OUXers out there listening who have maybe been through the masterclass or been through foundations or something like that, they're thinking like, okay, well, that seems like a really high level CTA. And like, yeah, we do talk about high level CTAs. We're probably gonna be talking about those maybe more in the certification or something like that. So like the sign up
Right.
CTA, the create account CTA, get help CTA that might not be attached to an individual object, but those you do still have those that are attached to the object as well, and you want to prioritize those. So there's kind of like two different things. I just wanted to clear that up in case anybody was like, what object is that CTA on?
The subscription object, which is their prime revenue object. But
Yeah.
again, I don't use Descript because of the subscription object. I use Descript because of lots of other different objects that provide value. And if you want to learn more about the difference between the direct revenue object and the indirect revenue object, might I ask you to go back to the relationship prio episode
Yeah.
and listen to that again.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. Okay, it was such a good episode. Such a good conversation. I learned so much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll ask you that really obnoxiously broad question.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about CTA prioritization overall? Like what?
I mean, CTAs are the thing that the business cares about the most. Like they don't we think in objects, but the business thinks in terms of people clicking CTAs,
Yes.
because all of our metrics are around that precious click on the revenue object that then brings in value to the organization. So really the level up here to get from CTA prioritization is how you make sure that you're connecting the business strategy to the business bag of tricks that can go into compelling somebody to click that CTA. And what has been called in the past dark patterns, but we're going to use a different word. We're going to say manipulative patterns, or you had a different word for it that I really liked.
It's like you can kind of get a little bit more specific.
Coercive.
Like, is it coercive? Is it manipulative? Is it
Deceptive.
Deceptive. That's such a good one. Or like, I
Yeah.
also like to use toxic sometimes too. It's a toxic pattern.
Yeah.
Just get a little
Well,
bit more
that's just because
specific.
you're a big Britney fan. Huge Britney fan, so you know,
I
toxic.
am. Shout out to Ooks. We did it again. Ellie and I's
Exactly.
YouTube channel. But yes, we don't want toxic patterns.
So the business will come to you and sometimes bring in coercive patterns or toxic patterns to get people to click on these CTAs. And really what CTA prioritization is all about is making sure that you are not falling into those bad bag of tricks and instead doing things that enrich users and enrich the business as well. Now, this is all very high level and almost Pollyanna-ish, but I would say like in the course, we talk about these very difficult conversations you need to have with the growth team, with your marketing team, with the C-suite, to make sure that not only are the revenue objects things, and the revenue CTAs are things that we care about, but we also make sure and make care for the contra revenue objects and the contra CTAs. So what is a contra CTA?
I have a thought
So we
real
talk
quick.
about CTAs.
I have a
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, go ahead.
I have a thought before we get into contra CTAs. And it just came to my mind of like, we think about, so CTAs, for anybody who doesn't know, we're talking about calls to action. We're talking about the buttons.
Calls to action.
Calls to action, buttons being
Yeah.
clicked, which
Yeah.
in the past, we've also talked about like calling them capabilities or something like that. Like what can the objects do, or what ways can users act upon the objects? How does an object call a user to action? But another
Action.
C that we could use, like if it helps, and if it like for some people thinking about more on the business side, we can think about conversions. these are how you might, and not all CTA, but like pretty much actually every strong CTA is some sort of conversion, even if you're liking it or adding it to a wish list, or I mean, I
Yes.
guess
They all have conversion rates
if you are
attached to them.
removing it or unliking something, that is the that's not really, is that the contra CTA?
That is a
Mm,
part of the contra CTA. But usually,
okay.
the way I would like to think about contra CTAs are the things that either directly or indirectly remove revenue or remove
Mm-hmm.
your connection to the service. So
Example.
I'll give you HelloFresh as an example. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I'll give you HelloFresh. So HelloFresh has a weekly food box subscription. It's a service and it is opt out. So you get the subscription, you are opted in unless you opt out. The opt out CTA is either pause, so meaning that I can pause my subscription for a week, or cancel, my subscription is going to be done. So there is the subscribe, which is the revenue CTA. The pause or cancel are the contra CTAs. So they represent danger for the business.
Mm.
And because these CTAs represent danger for the business, they also can be the biggest place where user intent and business intent can diverge. And when
Yeah.
user intent and business intent diverge, that's where you start getting into coercive patterns and the coercive arts of tricking people into staying. And
AKA
that's
hiding your
bad,
cancel button.
aka hiding your cancel button. Now, here, it got so bad at HelloFresh that governments were taking action against HelloFresh and other subscription companies around hiding their cancel CTAs. One of the
Mm.
tricks that people wrote on Reddit around this in the United States was, they said if you want to cancel your subscription but not call HelloFresh, if you change your delivery address to anywhere in California, all of a sudden the cancel CTA will show up because California had regulation on HelloFresh to have a cancel button without a call. And your face right there, if for the listener that did not see this,
Mm.
Sophie's face was exactly my face too, which is a level of shock and disgust
Yes,
that
exactly.
makes me not only want to, if I was a subscriber, cancel my subscription, but also run away screaming from the
Yeah.
business, because
Uh-huh.
this is such an erosion of trust.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that we have to look out for. When you are only optimizing for a conversion or a conversion rate, and you're doing everything you can to dissuade somebody from a contra CTA, you can start doing things that are very, very dangerous to the business's brand and reputation, that can cause irreparable harm.
Mm. I have a story, but I think I'm preaching to the choir here. I think most of the UX designers here know this, and that we definitely want to talk about like more like what can we do when these toxic patterns are suggested to us, or we're like, the UX designers that are having to like hide the cancel button or the pause button or something like that. But I had a really awesome experience with a cancel button
Yeah.
where it was on my jobs.ph. So we recently hired two amazing VAs from the Philippines, Fiona and Hazel.
Virtual assistants, for those people who
Virtual
are,
assistants.
unsure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hazel's probably editing this podcast. Hi, Hazel.
Hi,
Hey,
Hazel.
Hazel. So when using this platform, it's a monthly charge of $99 to be able to like post a thing. Cool, fine, growing the team.
Reasonable.
And
Yep.
they made it so easy to cancel. Like it was like they even encourage it. They were like, and when like before I hit cancel, all it said was like, you will have premium access until this day. So it even told
Yes.
me I'm not canceling immediately. I paid for the month. So like you're gonna get all the features until this day. And this is what's gonna happen when you do cancel. So like you're not going to lose I think it's like I don't lose my messages. So they like actually made it really clear. So I felt really safe canceling, that like my
Yeah.
contacts weren't going to go. I just wouldn't be able to post another job. So it was like, it was really beautiful. It was really clear. And they even said like, they were encouraging of me to cancel, and they're like, because we know that you're going to have such a great experience, you're going to want to hire more people, and we're just going to make it really,
Correct.
really easy for you to reinstate your account, so don't even worry about that. I was like, I love you guys. It
Well, think of it from their
truly,
perspective.
yeah.
Think of it from their perspective for a second. So they could either choose to try to trick you into incremental revenue, but the sacrifice that they have here is if you're posting no jobs on this platform, this is a marketplace platform. There are jobs and there are candidates. The candidates are going there because there are active jobs that they can apply to and become employees or get certain kind of, what am I trying to say, consultancy jobs out of this thing.
Gigs.
But if all of a sudden now this platform is filled with job posters that don't have any jobs, now all of a sudden it's a marketplace that looks empty. So it not only benefits you because you are not paying for a service that you don't need, but also it benefits the candidates because these are actually people that are hiring, not just people that are sitting around by accident kind of thing.
Yeah, so good. I wonder how I'm curious how you've seen this tie to metrics or like potential vanity metrics within a business. So like we
Yeah.
need our like number of subscribers. And like if I'm responsible for number of subscribers, then I don't want people to cancel versus number of active subscribers or something like that. Like making sure the metric is really clearly tied to like business intentions
Value.
and value.
Yeah, yeah.
Value, yeah.
We'll talk more about this in attribute prioritization,
Okay.
but there is this need when companies scale for the domains by which we have people work become narrower and therefore their metrics become narrower. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next in attribute prioritization. But generally speaking, if you are measured by your metrics, you will always, any metric that is used as a goal stops being a good measure because all of a sudden then it is subject to gamesmanship. And instead of using metrics as measures, but rather as sensing metrics, meaning that you're just using that in the pile of data by which you make decisions, then you can make better business decisions. And also your employees will act more rationally because they are not being measured by these things, that it's just about sense making. Now, all what I'm talking about is really like corporate culture from the top. Imagine though, like you can't change a CEO's mind if they believe that all measures are important and that people should be measured directly on these metrics. The problem that you typically run into is that people are very narrow with their thinking and they end up making very poor decisions that only benefit them because if they're being measured on this very specific metric from moving from here to here. I'll give you an example at HelloFresh. This might make more sense. So our paid marketing team they were rewarded and measured by the number of conversions from a paid marketing thing, whether that was a thing that was dropped in a box, like a physical asset or a digital asset, and that thing turning into a conversion into a newsletter sign up. That's all they had to do. They had to go from nothing to a newsletter sign up. So what they ended up doing was just optimizing the crap out of these newsletter signups, even for folks that were probably further along the journey. Essentially what it does is they started using tactics that became very self-serving for them, but not good for the business.
So you would get like some
I don't know if
newsletter
this,
signups that were not actually like qualified customers or something like that.
yeah,
It's just kind of
exactly. Or like they're people that are already customers and like we paid for them to sign up for the newsletter. So that's like a big waste of money. And essentially what it came down to was they were using the measure as, sorry, let me remember what this is. Whose law is this? Every measure, I have to look it up. One second. Measure, any measure that is a goal stops being a good measure. Something like that. Goodhart's law, that's what it is.
ooh,
Oh, it's great. I used to talk about Goodhart's law all the
I've
time.
never heard of it. Tell me all about it.
So they ran into the victimhood of what is called Goodhart's law, an adage. I'll read this straight from the Wikipedia. It's an adage. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure because once we make it a target, then it stops being about general sentiment and general
Sensing.
activity, and now it starts being focusing on that, and therefore we can't use it as a measure of the business anymore. It's just a goal metric. So Goodhart's law is very dangerous. However, I'm not saying to ditch all metrics. I'm just saying your metrics need to be sensing metrics. If you don't measure people on the metrics, then the metrics stay good sense making. Otherwise, they end up biting you in the butt because you start optimizing narrowly for these metrics, and therefore they don't become good sense metrics anymore.
So what do we do when, let's bring it down to brass tacks before we wrap up this episode, and like talk about what do we do? What advice do we give to people when we're told to hide the cancel button? Like, we can talk about like, okay, well, we're eroding trust and blah, blah, blah. And like, let's talk about this case study from HelloFresh where like only in California people were changing their address. Like, we can give those examples, but how, like, do we have any way of like measuring the ROI on that and saying like, tell me more?
The problem that we have is that metrics that are easy to measure will always be prioritized over metrics that are harder to measure. This is also why quantitative outcomes are always more respected than qualitative outcomes, because qualitative outcomes require a discussion. Quantitative outcomes, you can say 3 is greater than 2, therefore 3 is, better or worse, depending on what 3 and 2 is.
Yeah.
So you have to have what I call adult conversations. And you have to say, just because there's another law that I want to bring up. So we brought up Goodhart's law. Now to remember this law. Hold on one second. It has to do with the Vietnam War. It is McNamara's principle. Is that what it is? McNamara principle. Oh, McNamara fallacy. That's what it's called.
Ooh, a fallacy.
Yes. So the adult conversation you have to start bringing up is best captured by what's called the McNamara fallacy. I'm not going to go into great detail about the McNamara fallacy. You can invite me for another episode if we want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But essentially, Robert McNamara, who I believe was the defense secretary during the Vietnam War, was a huge proponent of using quantitative metrics in order to evaluate business. And he believed that those quantitative metrics could be brought into government as well to evaluate effectiveness. And he used almost purely quantitative metrics to evaluate the Vietnam War. And the thing is that all quantitative metrics for the Vietnam War look like that the US was thriving in this war. But every bit of qualitative data that came in showed huge problems with the US involvement in the war. So the McNamara fallacy essentially says to you that if you only solely use quantitative observations for decisions and ignore all others, essentially what you can't measure is still matters. So there's this thing that my CEO used to say, like, you only what is measured matters, and that's incorrect. There are other factors that you can't measure that matter. And one of the things that we are talking about here is brand trust and brand loyalty. Now here's the thing, you can measure it. It's difficult to measure, it's costly to measure, but there are proxy things that you can do to bring those into the conversation. I brought up some of those proxies, and you have as well. Look for forum posts that talk about a eroding of trust and the brand damage that you are doing for your decisions. It's a hard conversation to have, and again, at a certain point, you have to have an adult conversation. But if designers start getting very good at thinking about Goodhart's law and thinking about the McNamara fallacy, these two things pair very well together to start bringing in a more holistic, systemic thinking to these discussions with your business stakeholders. And again, OUX is all about systemic thinking and all about breaking down complexity. These are great ways to foster that conversation.
I mean, just this idea that like the harder something is to measure, I mean, this probably isn't always true, but this like, it could be inversely proportional to how important that is, right? Like if it's easy to measure, like how important is it really? Versus like something that's more difficult to measure is like, it's deeper down. Like it's easy to measure. It's just sitting there on the surface, right? But like brand trust and loyalty is like deep at the heart. So you kind of have to like, my metaphor is breaking down a little bit, but like surgically get in there, and it's like, and it's messy and it's nuanced and it requires qualitative information. The good news is probably like AI is going to help with that a lot, if it's not already helping with that, to be able to like scan the internet and see like how are people feeling about my company.
And there are vendors that help with this as well. And we used to subscribe to those vendors at HelloFresh. Again, now we're turning into an industry podcast about something different. But just know that what you're trying to do is you're bringing in systemic thinking. Sometimes when you bring in systemic thinking, that requires you to have conversations about things that are difficult to measure. And you have to build relationships in order to get to a point that you can say a little bit more than trust me, bro.
Yeah.
If you're interested in this, write me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. So if you go linkedin.com/in/JakeZ, you can get to me. I love having these conversations. They've been incredibly difficult. And I think as design leadership or people who aspire to design leadership, we need to get much better about these types of topics, about the psychological aspects of measurement in order to drive better conversations with our business stakeholders.
Totally. Yeah. Y'all message Jake. Let him know what's on your mind.
Yeah.
You'll get a slew of messages and probably some cool stories. So
Yeah.
let us know also, like, if you have run into this where you've been pressured to kind of squash some contra CTAs. But one thing that, like, Jake, I want to get your reaction to, and that, like, is coming up for me, is this idea that preempting, like what you were kind of alluding to, is like just knowing about, like, that there are contra CTAs and that they need to be there. And these are CTAs that, like, ooh, the business, it's going to create some tension between user intentions and business outcomes. And the more we can preempt that and be like, ooh, the pause or the cancel button on the subscription object, these are contra CTAs. And the business is, I might end up in a conversation where these are going to get tried. We're going to try some sort of manipulative pattern where these are going to be hidden or hard to get to. Knowing that, so that you can go ahead and make your case for how you think that they should be designed and how you maybe have mitigated this and met the business in the middle, and coming to the conversation because you can say something like, I mean, even as you're like presenting your screen, right? And you're like, yeah, I understand that these we like to call them contra. We can even use, it sounds cool to call them a contra CTA. These are contra CTAs.
CTA.
And yes, we really need them here from the user perspective. I totally understand that these are kind of at odds with the business. Just saying that is going to bring people into the conversation. Just like, instead of being like,
Correct.
here's my big ass cancel button, and like you're just completely clueless about it, and the business is going to be like, oh, she really doesn't get it. It's a psychological thing.
Correct.
Where you're starting the conversation. You're almost like, instead of being on the defensive, you're kind of on the, it's not being on the offensive. And offensive. I don't want this to sound like it's conflicting or something.
It's not. It's getting rid of. It's getting rid of the gamesmanship. It's getting rid of the zero-sum game of all of this.
Yeah.
Look, and what I learned in therapy, I think also works in business, which is when you can take things that are in your limbic system that are feelings, when you start saying like, this feels wrong, and instead bring it to your prefrontal cortex where you can talk about why things are wrong, and you can use very structured language around that, then people can have a much more logical, rational conversation with you. The problem that I always had was that conversation about whether or not to hide the pause button or hide the cancel button was always a limbic system discussion. Therefore, we were all having an emotional discussion, and it was all a zero-sum game discussion. And it stunk because it turned into, we either hide it or we don't hide it. Within the advanced masterclass, I start showing you techniques by which you can take the objects, your revenue objects, and take the contra CTAs and talk about where a user is in the journey and having different strategies within a 2x2 matrix. And you can go to each square and say, we're going to change our strategy on each of these so that we can do something that is good for the business and also makes sense for the user, because you want users to have a lifetime. One of the greatest metrics that is undervalued in business is called lifetime value, LTV. Every one of your business folks wants to maximize LTV. Just remember, you are a subscriber to a service. You might unsubscribe. You might subscribe again. You have a lifetime value with them. If you try so hard to keep somebody in a subscription, when they don't want to be there, you have eroded lifetime value. And every business person will completely understand that. And if you can start moving things from a emotional limbic system to a prefrontal cortex conversation, and start using some of the things that you learned within Advanced Masterclass. Sign up for Advanced Masterclass. If you already are certified in Masterclass, you will start learning about how to remove the zero-sum game from this and different techniques that you can use to have much better conversations around these contra CTAs.
Oh my gosh, what a freaking level up, right? Of like being able to have these conversations with the business as a UX designer. Like, Holy shit. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
it's huge.
That's like so transformational. I hope y'all understand how that can help you in your career to be able to have these conversations. And hopefully this conversation helped out a lot. One other thing I wanted to mention, like when you started talking about therapy and the limbic system, I was like,
Yeah.
the other thing about preempting this conversation and understanding the concept of contra CTAs, it's validating to the business, like validate them, right? And what happens when you validate somebody's like, because probably the business, they're like, oh, like now I have to say it again. Like, can we please not make that CTA so freaking big? Or can we like, put it down a level? Can we put it under a little twirly arrow or put it on like another page where people don't expect it? If we can preempt that and validate their
Yes.
needs, they're going to meet us halfway. That is just human nature. So we are
Or
validating the
get them away
business.
or get them away from the idea that like, well, Amazon does it like this. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Blue Apron doesn't like this. We're not Blue Apron. We're not Amazon. We are our own people.
Mm-hmm.
We get to make the decisions about who we are. We made fun of Mitt
Yeah.
Romney back when he was running for president, but corporations are made up of people, right? We're just
Mm-hmm.
people that are organized together,
Yeah.
trying to make a business happen. And we get to decide who this corporation
Mm-hmm.
is, like how they exist and how they interact with the world. And we want to use the golden rule as much as possible,
Yeah.
but not lecture people about it. And I think there's good technique to bring it into a logical conversation.
Just another thing that came up when you're talking, like I just got a little emotional about thinking like, yes,
Oh,
like these companies, it's just made of people that are really well-meaning,
they're just
right?
people.
They're trying to do their
Yeah.
job, they're well-meaning. Like we think about like, oh, Meta is evil, Facebook is evil. Like I know a bunch of people that work at Facebook. They are doing their best there. They are trying, and like weird shit happens, but like they are really are trying to do their best there. Often their hands are tied, and OUX definitely helps break down some of those silos and some of those boundaries. And
It
they're,
just brings accountability.
yeah,
The big corporations, honestly, is that it turns into a huge unaccountability machine because everyone's pointing fingers at everybody else. And if you as a designer are going to be like, look, I'm going to take accountability for the user experience, this is how you earn that. Not only earn, you grab that seat at the table and
yeah.
everyone will thank you for it.
And it creates this company that everybody wants to work for too. So when you align
Yes.
values and you can have these conversations in a really informed professional way, which is what you're going to be teaching us so much about in the prioritization round, you're probably getting better employee retention too, because people feel good about the
Correct.
company that they're working for. People feel good about what they're doing and they don't feel swarmy and gross about it. And then when another opportunity comes along, it's like, oh, well, this company seems a little bit more value aligned to me. And people care about that. Like nobody wants, like probably, I mean, like I don't want to throw, like HelloFresh is awesome. We do not want to throw HelloFresh under the bus at all. But like when you were having those conversations and it was like, oh my gosh, like California, you have to change your address to a California address to get the CTA button, to get the cancel button. And learning that as an employee at HelloFresh probably feels kind of
Oh,
gross,
it's so
right?
disheartening.
It's
Yeah, it's
disheartening.
so dispiriting. And you're just like, I don't want to be this. And look,
I don't want to be
the thing
this.
that I really, the thing that I love to tout is that at HelloFresh and at Fjord, I had the highest employee engagement in the company within my group, and I had the lowest turnover. And we were paying, this is not nothing to be proud of, we were paying at market salaries. Like we weren't paying huge amounts of money for talent. And if you are a person that wants to build a business and you want to make sure that your employees are happy and healthy, they want to stick around and build something with you, and they want to be part of like building this culture with you, and you don't have a whole lot of money to pay them, they are looking for this. They're looking for people with principles. And if you can be the person that is acting with principles and making sure that you are driving the right conversation, not from a principles perspective, but bringing that emotional conversation to a logical place. This is where this content can help you do that. This will ensure your leadership journey and ensure that you will be well rewarded for it.
Totally, totally. Okay, we got into some
This is
big
heady stuff.
picture stuff for CTA prioritization. So
Yeah.
join us if you want more of this, like let's become partners with the business. Let's work with the business to create better user experiences.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Be well, everyone.
Happy OUXing. Thank you so much for listening to the UX Level Up podcast. If you want to connect with me, Sophia, please follow me on Instagram at SophiaVUX, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Sophia Prater. I'm pretty easy to find there. Our music was brought to you by Ruby Vell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Thanks again for listening.